Welcome everyone to the Cristo Rey Network Virtual College Fair. My name's Jen. I'll be your facilitator this evening, but before I pass it over to our presenters, a few housekeeping items. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. So the best way to communicate with the representatives is to ask your questions via the Q&A button. So type your questions at any time, and they will do their best to answer those throughout the presentation. And then you are able to sign up for more sessions tonight and on Saturday as well at the same website that you registered for this session. And all of these sessions are being recorded and will be available on that website to view in an on-demand setting after the fact. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Bianca and Stephanie with Cristo Rey.
Thank you, Jen. So we're going to begin with just a quick introduction and a thank you. So thank you for joining us today. Guardians, seniors, juniors, my name is Bianca Peiss. I'm the Associate Director of College Initiatives at the Cristo Rey Network. Also on the call is Stephanie Arias, our Director of College Initiatives at the Cristo Rey Network. And today we'll be going through a Financial Aid 101. So some general processes towards the financial aid process and terminology. We'll leave a couple minutes towards the end for Q&A. But of course, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat. Stephanie will either address them in the chat or we'll leave them to the end to address them out loud. We have a number of people joining us today, so really excited to get started here. So to begin, I want to give you an overview of this fall semester that seniors are currently engaging with. So there are a number of things that if you're a senior, you know that you're doing right now. You may be writing personal statements, you're receiving those letters of recommendation that you just got, and you're also attending college fairs and participating in rep visits. And one of the unique pieces to these steps that include a lot of this like parent engagement is this like bar here called college affordability. So these steps here not only require seniors engagement or students engagement, they also require families to be engaged, right? They also require documentation from families and questions from families. So I consider this bar here, college affordability, this joint effort from both parents and students. This is sort of like a zoomed in college affordability steps throughout the year, right? So in August, you've got collecting documents, and then all the way at the end in July, the process ends with finally receiving your financial aid. So it takes nearly a full year to go through all of these processes. So we'll go through those broad strokes today, and your college counselor at your Cristo Rey High School will go into depth with what those processes look like, what that information looks like, and how to apply to some of these pieces. All right, so as a Financial Aid 101, we have to begin with what is financial aid? So the first is financial aid makes college affordable for you or for your child. Financial aid refers to funding that is available to the student to make up the difference between what the student can afford and what the college costs. Now, we'll talk a little bit more later on about, well, how does the college know what I can afford, right? And then we'll talk about what it means to cost. What's the cost of that college? But in short, it's that difference between what you can afford and the cost of the college. And it comes from a lot of different places. It comes from the federal government, the state, the institution. And it's broken up between need-based aid, which is based off of what you put into FAFSA, and then merit-based aid, which is based off of your academics, like your grades, your GPA, your test scores, and your achievement and leadership skills. So we mentioned it's the difference between what you can afford and the cost of college. Well, what's the cost of college? The cost of college, or the cost of attendance, is the amount it will cost a student to go to college for 1 year. So we always measure it in 1 year. And the first part is called a direct expense. This is what the family will be billed. This is tuition and fees, room and board. The second half of that is indirect costs. This is likely what you'll spend, but it's not what you get billed. So let's think about this really quickly. Transportation. Depending on where you live, transportation may be really expensive. Now, you won't get billed for the flight to go to California if your school is in California, but it's something that you need to consider as a cost to go to that school. So when you add up all of these amounts, it comes up to cost of attendance. And when the college is providing financial aid, they're doing that with these 4 big buckets. The first is scholarships and grants. That's what we call gift aid. You don't have to pay that back. The second big group is called self-help aid, and that's through loans and work study. Loans, you have to pay those back, and work study, you have to earn those. So where does all of this information come from, or where do all of these sources come from? So let's break this down a little bit more. In terms of grants, when we say grants, we generally mean 2 kinds. The first is a federal grant, and the federal grant comes from the federal government. And the biggest, most important grant that you need to know about is the Pell Grant. The second is the state grant. The state grant is funded by the state that you live in. And if you go to a school that's in the same state that you live in, you could be eligible for the state grant. These are 2 big amounts that you can earn. The third is scholarships. A lot of you guys know about scholarships. Those come from either the college or an outside organization, like the McDonald's scholarship. I want you to think for yourself just a second. Think about where you think students get most of their scholarship dollars. Just 2 seconds. Where are students getting most of their free scholarship dollars? You can put it in the chat if you'd like. Okay, so whatever you had in your mind, if you thought the college, then you're correct. 90% of the money that a student will get is actually from the college, okay? So investing in the kind of college that you apply to and go to is actually really important to your financial aid process. If you'd like to learn more about your state's grants, click on the link that is hyperlinked here where it says review your state's grants programs. And that link or these slides are included in the chat. All right, second group, right? Work study and loans. So for loans, we generally have 2 kinds of loans. Federal loans are provided by the US government, okay? And they generally have really low interest rates. Some of them are subsidized interest, so there's no interest while you're in college. And these are the ones that when you hear about loan forgiveness, these are the ones that qualify for loan forgiveness. Then there are private loans. These are from the bank. And the purpose of a private loan is to generate revenue. So generally those interest rates will be higher and sometimes they're variable. So those interest rates may change along the way. The last terminology that I want to go through is federal work study. So federal work study is provided by the federal government, and it's based off of your FAFSA and whether or not you need, the FAFSA's identified your need. And essentially it gives you the opportunity to work on campus or off campus as an undergraduate. And as you work, you earn those dollars and you can get that as a check, or you can apply it towards your tuition. So that's some quick terminology. If there was any terminology that I either went too quickly over or you want to learn a little bit more, feel free to put it in the chat. Now let's jump into the financial aid process, right? We talked about it beginning in sort of like August and it lasts until July. Well, the first part of this is FAFSA. So what is FAFSA? Well, FAFSA is a free application for federal student aid. And it has to be applied to or completed annually with the prior year's taxes. So you have to do it every single year and you have to use last year's taxes. Dependent students need to use their parents' taxes. And this is oftentimes the biggest error that parents or students make while completing FAFSA. They forget to put their own information, or students forget to put their parents' information. For this school year, parents, if you're on the call, you will be using your 2020 federal taxes. So if you have those in hand, make sure you grab them. And here's the thing, if you don't complete FAFSA every single year, or if you don't complete FAFSA, you won't be eligible for some of those federal loans that I talked about earlier, or those scholarships even that the colleges offer, because oftentimes colleges look for the FAFSA or look at the FAFSA and then develop and give you scholarship dollars. So when does the FAFSA open up? It opens up October 1st every single year. So if you're a senior in college right now, it will open up in October, and you would be applying for when you're a freshman in college. When should you apply, or when should you complete FAFSA? As soon as possible after October 1st. Why should you do FAFSA so early? Well, a couple things. Those state grants that I mentioned, a lot of those are on a first come, first served basis. And it's sort of like they'll continue to award it until it runs out. Here in the state of Illinois, it's called the MAC grant, and it's worth $5,496. So if you accidentally miss out on this money just because you waited too long, that could be a big chunk that you could be saving. So it's really, really important that you do it. And as long as you do it by like January, you should be fine, right? Oftentimes it's the alumni, once you're in college, because you have to apply for FAFSA every year, that they forget to do it in the summer and then they miss out. How should you apply? I'm going to give you two options here. So the first is through your computer by going online to fafsa.gov, FAFSA.gov. Or if you don't have a computer and you want to do it from your phone, there's also an app, and you could download the app, My Student Aid. I prefer FAFSA.gov because you can see the full screen and all of the questions. So who should complete FAFSA, right? Some people, other people, who should complete FAFSA? Every US citizen or eligible non-citizen, every one of you. So US citizen, right? That's like you're born here, you're a naturalized citizen. Those are pretty easy. What do I mean by eligible non-citizen? An eligible non-citizen is a US permanent resident with a permanent resident card or a conditional permanent resident. Now, there are some visas that students may have that may qualify them for financial aid. And it's really, really important that you talk to your college counselor before completing FAFSA to see if you are eligible. Should students complete the FAFSA if they're not 100% sure that they're going to go to college? You know, let's say you're like, I'm definitely going into the military. Should you complete FAFSA? Absolutely, yes. You're not committing to any financial aid by completing FAFSA. However, by doing it now, it ensures that one, you're in line for financial aid if you ever change your mind between now and next year. What if your parent is undocumented, or you as a parent, you're undocumented? You should still, or the student should still complete FAFSA as long as the student is a US citizen or eligible non-citizen, okay? So it doesn't matter what the parent's status is, citizenship is. It's really, really important that it's just the student and whether or not they're US citizen or eligible non-citizen. And just note that if you are a parent that's undocumented, that's totally fine. You'll need to print out and mail in the signature page at the end of the FAFSA application. It's going to take about 7 to 10 days. So just give yourself a little bit more time if you, a parent, are undocumented to complete the FAFSA. What if a family thinks they're ineligible for aid because they make too much money? Okay, so this is another question that I just want you to think in your head, or you can put in the chat. I want you to think about what group, what family income bracket submitted the most FAFSA applications? Okay, just like think through how much money was the family, what's the income bracket of the families that submitted the most FAFSA applications? Think about that while I explain this. So all eligible students should file FAFSA despite any assumption of what you think you're gonna get from the government or from the college. Just apply, because the college, even if you don't qualify for the grants, that free money from the federal government or the state, colleges will still use FAFSA to give you money, right? To give you scholarship dollars. All right, you've had some time to think. I hope you have a number in your head. So the number is families that earned $100,000 and up were the biggest group that submitted their FAFSA. So it's really, really important. that despite your financial situation, that you are completing FAFSA. And I'm just going to be really transparent with you here at Cristo Rey. We have a goal that 100% of all eligible students complete their FAFSA by February 1st. Why do we want that? Because here at Cristo Rey, we want to make sure that everyone is eligible for the maximum number of free money, right? Maximum number of grants and scholarships. All right, so what do you need to complete FAFSA? So first, you will be completing, if you're a senior, you will be completing the 2022-2023 FAFSA application. And these are the things you have to gather. The first is the student's social security number. Please make sure it's correct. Confirm, look at the card, do all of those things. And if you're a permanent resident, your alien registration number, if you're a non-US citizen. Gather together records of all of your income. So if you're a parent that worked, your 2020 federal taxes. If you're a student that worked, also your 2020 federal taxes, your W-2s. If you have a business, any records of income from your business, any untaxed income, and any child support paid or received. You'll also want to collect information about your assets. So those of you who have real estate investments, you'll want to collect information about the value of that home as well as the debt. Any information around stocks, bonds, any college saving plans, just get all of that information gathered before October 1st. And then finally, for students, create an FSA ID so that you can sign that application electronically. And if you're a parent with a social security number, you should also create an FSA ID. All of these things I think should be considered, or not considered, completed before October 1st in preparation. All right, so what happens once you've submitted your FAFSA? So what will happen is that you'll receive a student aid report, also called the SAR. That's on the right-hand side. You can see an example of that on the right-hand side. You'll also receive an expected family contribution, an EFC. Within the student aid report, you'll get how much you're eligible for the Pell Grant, and then a list of any suspected errors that they think, hey, this might be an error when you entered this in. So for the EFC, you'll see that in this box here. And then for the Pell Grant and listed errors, you'll see that in that little paragraph there. So what's an EFC? An EFC is a measure of a family's financial strength that is calculated according to a formula that's based off of Congress. So Congress establishes this formula. And your EFC is used by the college to determine how much financial assistance you can get. So the MAP grant, the federal grant, et cetera. Where do you see it? Again, you can see it in that student aid report. One quick tip, once you've completed FAFSA, make sure that you show your student aid report to your college counselor. Okay, here are some common myths about FAFSA, or some questions. It's pointless to apply if I make too much money. Absolutely not. False, absolutely false. It's really, really important that we are applying because we want to be eligible for all of the financial aid possible. Some financial aid possible through FAFSA, as a reminder, scholarships, grants, loans, work study. That's a lot that you could be eligible for. I can use my grandmother's information instead of my parents because she makes less than my parents. Unfortunately, that's a very common error. If you live with your parents and you're dependent of your parents, generally you have to use your parents' taxes. Now, there are special circumstances where you may be an independent student. And if that's the case, please talk to your college counselor and they can work out your eligibility. My parents are undocumented, so I cannot apply and I won't be eligible for financial aid. Absolutely not. As long as you, the student, the senior, is a US citizen or eligible non-citizen, you should still complete FAFSA and you will still be awarded financial aid. My parents do not file taxes, so how am I supposed to complete FAFSA if they're asking for taxes? Well, there's ways to answer that I didn't work and I didn't earn any money, right? So totally fine. It doesn't matter what your parents' financial situation is. Please still complete the FAFSA. My EFC is currently $112. And then it's your sophomore year of college and you're like, my EFC is currently $112. Your EFC does not stay the same for every year. Why is this? Well, you have to apply to FAFSA every single year, annually. And because you're using new taxes, new financial aid situations, your EFC may change. And as your EFC changes, so does your financial aid potentially. I'm currently going through bankruptcy, so my son or daughter cannot apply and won't be eligible. It doesn't matter if you're going through bankruptcy, your son or daughter is still eligible for financial aid. And even more so, it's really, really important that you're applying for financial aid if your family is currently going through some hardship. Okay, we've completed FAFSA. We're totally done. Not so fast. The next one is verification. So what's verification? So after you've completed FAFSA, for some students, they'll be flagged for verification. Verification is the process by which colleges ensure that the information that was put into FAFSA is true and accurate by asking students to verify through other documentation, okay? So why? Well, colleges want to make sure that people are getting the money they deserve and are eligible for. How do they do this? Well, colleges request worksheets, these like forms, and they'll ask the same questions that are on the FAFSA that you answered earlier online. And what they're looking for is that the answers that you put into FAFSA match up with the responses that you're putting into that worksheet. They're looking for consistency. So they're also asking you for a copy of the W-2s, right? So if you put down, I make $10,000, they're looking for $10,000 on the W-2. They may also ask for tax return transcripts. Talk to your college counselor about that. And then if you put down 4 people live in the household, they're going to ask you to name those 4 people who live in the household and the relationship to you, right? So again, they're just confirming the information that you've provided. Really quick tip, making sure that you're responding to and following up with the college on whatever they're requesting, as long as you can push that information out quickly, it will help process out the financial aid faster. This is oftentimes, the verification process is oftentimes where students get really, really stuck because now they've asked for all these forms, I have to fax them out, right? But it's really, really important that this process goes as quickly as possible. So ensuring that you're supporting your child through this process is important. So who gets flagged for verification? Not everyone. And there's a quick tip that I want to show you. So once the FAFSA is completed and the student aid report is provided, if you look at the top and you look at your EFC, if you see this red thing, if you see an asterisk right next to your EFC number, that means you've been flagged and you'll likely get required to fill out those forms. So you should just start calling the colleges and saying, what do you need, right? Again, it's going to look like, in this case, EFC 123 and then an asterisk. If you have an asterisk, notify your college counselor and they can help you process out those verification forms. So here's the thing, colleges will hold on onto those award letters, hold on to that financial aid until all of that verification is completed. And if they find any inconsistencies, they'll just ask for more information. So here, consistency is really, really key. So after you've sent out and faxed out those forms that verify the information that you put on FAFSA, what the college will do is that they'll send out an award letter. What's an award letter? Also called a financial aid package. But it's essentially what the school says that they'll give to you in financial aid, and they'll also tell you how much the college will cost. So they'll tell you what the cost is and how much, and they'll break down how much they'll give you in financial aid. This gives you an idea of whether or not the college will be affordable for you before having to commit to the school. What are some things that you may see in an award letter? Okay, very similar to what you may see in financial aid, which is you'll see some scholarship dollars from the college. You may see loans from the federal government. You may see some loans from the college. You may see some grants from the federal government and the state. You may see an offering of work study. On top of those, you will also see the cost of attendance. Here's an example of a real award letter from Lycoming College. You'll notice here, they've broken it down. Now, every award letter looks different. They've broken it down by scholarships and grants. That's that free money. So here you've got Lycoming grant, presidential scholarship. That's from the college. And then you've got the federal Pell Grant and the federal FSEOG. That's a federal grant. Then you've got below that educational loans, the 2 student loans that freshmen are offered, which is the federal subsidized Stafford and the federal unsubsidized Stafford. And then below that, you've got direct expenses. Again, this is what's getting billed to you: tuition, room and board, and then some fees. And then on the right-hand side, you've got all of that financial aid broken down by semester, because you get billed as a parent each semester at the beginning of each semester. So you get the financial aid that you'll receive each semester and then the total. The student here has a 0 EFC. So I want you to just quickly take note of some of the grants. This is where you would ask yourself, is this college affordable for my family? And here's a quick refresher on that cost of attendance, right? We've got those direct costs, tuition, room and board, some fees. This is fixed. This is what gets billed to you. And then you've got indirect costs. This is just estimating what you might pay in books and supplies, what you might end up paying in the toothpaste and the hairbrush and all those things. So you don't want to consider, when you're looking at award letters, you don't want to consider indirect expenses. You only want to consider direct expenses. So as you're looking at award letters, you want to consider direct expenses, tuition fees, room and board if you're dorming. Room and board is dorming, board is meal, the meal plan. Take a look, see if they also include any of those indirect, because you want to make sure you're just removing that from the calculation. What kind of aid are they including? Okay, are they adding these additional extra loans? You want to take note of that, identify those. 2, do you think you need all of those loans? And you can find out while doing this calculation here on the right-hand side. And then finally, what is your out-of-pocket cost? So the calculation here on the right-hand side, which I'm going to show you in this example really quickly for this award letter, the direct cost is $56,393. We're not including any indirect costs there. The scholarships from the college, $44,000. The grants from the government, $7,000. And when you subtract all the free money from the direct cost, it comes out to $4,500. That's before loans. They offered the student $5,500 in student loans. This is the exact same amount that will be offered to every student that completes FAFSA. And when you calculate that out, the out-of-pocket for the year is negative $1,000. This means the student will receive $1,000 after they accept their financial aid. This is the point where you're like, maybe I don't need the full loan, right? Or maybe I do because I need to pay some of those additional costs. So some common myths about award letters. Here are some that I want to highlight, but the biggest one that I want to highlight for you is the most affordable colleges are community colleges. That is one of the biggest misconceptions. That's not true. Actually, the most affordable colleges are sometimes the ones that have the highest cost. Some of these colleges like Harvard and Yale that cost $75,000 are the same ones after students get award letters, the same ones are like Denison, right? Or St. Olaf, same ones that when the student looks at the actual bill, they may not be paying much at all, okay? So we have a tool that we created that all of the college counselors have access to that your student likely connected to already. It's called the Data-Driven Checklist. I want you to ask about it and you can look at which schools are most affordable. Now let's talk about loans really quickly. As you're thinking about which loans do I want to consider, you want to consider which ones are most costly to least costly. So use this graphic organizer, okay? So at the top, the most costly loan will be any private loan from a bank. That's going to have the highest interest rate. And then moving down, you've got the Parent Plus loan, then the unsubsidized loan, then the subsidized loan. So the first loan that you want to take out, if you need to take out, is the subsidized Stafford loan. That has 0% interest while you're in college. Very, very important. You don't have to pay those back. Here's another image of that. So this is all the financial aid that you could potentially get, right? From the college, the scholarship amount is unlimited. From your state, it's dependent on your state, but it could be up to $5,000, $6,000, right? Check with your specific state. FSEOG up to $4,000. The Pell Grant, $6,000. None of this has to be paid back. Then you want to tap into the direct subsidized loan, which has an interest rate of 3.73% at $3,500 offered to all freshmen if you complete FAFSA. And then the federal direct unsubsidized loan has $2,000 a year, and that's an interest rate of 3.73%. And then the next one, the ones in red are ones that you have to actually apply, the parents have to apply to, and they'll check your credit. They're going to check your application, okay? A couple common myths here. I just need to check time really quickly. A couple common myths here about loans. Taking out student federal loans is not a good financial move. Now, I think the biggest misconception here is about the student federal loans. Now, we're not talking about the private loans. We generally don't agree with those, right? We don't say that those are not the ones to take out. There's a healthy amount of loans that you can take out. And we agree that student federal loans, that $5,500 generally is a good amount to take out if it provides you access to a really great institution. And after 4 years of taking out those student loans, your payments will generally be fairly small, right? Depending on the interest rate at $200 a month, potentially. It gets dangerous. We hear these stories about taking out $40,000, taking out $60,000. People who are taking out $40,000 and $60,000 have taken out Parent Plus loans and graduate loans and private loans. So we're not saying those. We're saying the $5,500 each year from the student federal loans is a healthy amount of loans that is appropriate. I should get a private loan before a federal loan. Please don't do that. No. Sometimes, you know, what the banks are saying to you sounds more enticing, but please take out a federal loan before a private loan. One, they're the ones that if you're an educator or you work in social work, they could potentially be forgiven, right? Two, they have the lowest interest rate. I will be in debt forever if I take out student loans. If you take out the healthy amount, the Stafford student loan, Stafford unsubsidized and subsidized, you will not be in debt forever. I don't have credit, so I can't get student federal loans. Every student, despite of credit, can still qualify and will be offered $5,500 in student federal loans. I have to apply for student federal loans. Again, that's not true. Just a quick, going back really quickly. The only ones that a parent or a student has to apply to is the Parent Plus loan and the private loan. I have to accept the Parent Plus loan if I apply. There's one strategy here where, or one thing that some counselors advise to do, where a parent can apply for the Parent Plus loan, and if you're denied, right, the student may actually be eligible for $4,000 more in student federal loans. If you apply, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to take out the Parent Plus loan. It's just checking eligibility. All right, we're on one of our last steps, which is the master promissory note and entrance counseling. So once you've decided how much you're taking out in student loans, there's two other steps that you have to do. It's to sign the loan agreement and to complete entrance counseling. Entrance loan counseling is like a small exam, it's not an exam, a small quiz. It takes about 20 minutes and they give you the answers. They tell you what the answers are. You just have to read the paragraph and then you answer the question right next to it. It's pretty quick, it's pretty easy, but you have to get it done before they distribute those loans. The second is a master promissory note. It's a legally binding agreement with the government that says the student will repay those loans. You need 2 references, okay? And these are references. These are not co-signers. So if you're asking for a reference or you're looking for a reference, these are just references. They have no obligation to you with this loan. And this has to be completed before loans are distributed. Oftentimes students forget about this process. And then in September, when their bill is larger than what they thought, this is the reason why they forgot to do the master promissory note. So do this right after your award letter. Okay, you've done the master promissory note, entrance loan counseling, your financial aid has been distributed. Some other common myths. I will make college affordable by applying to outside scholarships. Generally, those are so few and far between, and they make up such a small amount. We actually encourage students to invest in finding the colleges that are most affordable, the colleges like Lycoming and Denison and St. Olaf that give you more money up front without having to apply to any additional scholarships, than looking and spending all this time with all these outside scholarships, okay? And again, there's a tool that we've created that will tell you which are those most affordable colleges. There is no appeal process or ability to negotiate my award letter. Not true. When you receive your award letter, if this is your dream school, or if you have a special circumstance where you've had an illness in the family or finances have changed, you can absolutely and should negotiate and appeal your award letter. Write a letter to the financial aid office. Tell them how much more money you need to make that college happen for you. And what we know is that your college counselors are actually really good at this. So reach out to your college counselors about this process. I will have to pay my out-of-pocket in one lump sum. Absolutely not. There are payment plan options that are an option for you. There are also, every semester they'll bill you, so you don't pay it in one lump sum. My financial aid will be distributed automatically based on what is on my award letter. Again, there are some of those other steps like entrance loan counseling and master promissory note that you have to do before it gets distributed. And finally, my out-of-pocket cost remains the same year after year. Not true. Your out-of-pocket cost and your cost is dependent on what you put in FAFSA and what your EFC is. And because you have to apply to FAFSA every single year, your out-of-pocket cost may change. So again, as a reminder, here are those steps, right? By the month, August, September, you're collecting all that financial aid information. October opens up, you're doing the FAFSA. For some students, there's an additional CSS profile application that I won't get into in this session, but talk to your college counselor if you need to do that. And then in December and through April, you're getting all of these awesome acceptances. That means for any school that you get accepted to, they may ask you, I need you to complete verification. You're going to do that verification. And the goal is to get an award letter for every school you've been accepted to before May 1st. Because if you see there, that's decision day. And you need to make a decision by May 1st, and you should have all of the award letters by that point and understand what those schools cost. You accept your financial aid, you sign your loans, and then you receive your financial aid once you're at school. Parents on the call right now, here are some next steps for you. Right now, start to prepare your financial aid documents for the FAFSA application. Discuss your financial aid situation with your son or daughter, or if you're a senior, discuss your financial aid situation with your parents. Talk about comfortability with loans. Talk about what's the maximum that you guys can pay out of pocket, okay, for the year. Meet with the school's college counselor to discuss your family's financial situation. There are some schools that may be a better fit financially than other schools, and it's important that that the college counselors understand what that situation is. There's a contact list here of all of the college counselors so that you can reach out to them and schedule a meeting. Once you've done this, you'll want to complete FAFSA, the 2022-2023 FAFSA application. Follow up with the colleges after you've been accepted and complete those verification forms. Fax them in as soon as you get them. Work on receiving an award letter from every college you've been accepted to. And finally, compare costs and calculate the award letter for all of those schools before making a decision on May 1st. Here are those things, again, in chronological order: August, September, October, February, and May. And then in the slides that we just provided, there are some practice items here. I'm gonna open it up to Q&A if we have a few minutes.
Bianca, we had one question in the chat about what happens if you're awarded a full ride? What are the expenses that you'll still have out of pocket? And I responded, you know, those personal expenses that are variable, like books, transportation, personal items, that's pizza, shampoo, etc. The kind of thing that students just need to kind of get through the weekend and get through the day-to-day. Is there anything else you'd add to out-of-pocket expenses in a full ride?
Yeah, and I think the only other thing about a full ride is while those are few and far between, like when they say there's a full ride, there are some schools that aren't providing a full ride, but they're providing a very close to full ride. There are schools that, and I'm going to put this in your ear and you're going to write this down. They meet 100% of need. Okay. And so you can look those up. And so they'll give you much of that similar thing, and they'll cover those items that Stephanie just mentioned.
We also just had a question from Jasmine. Jasmine asked, if you're awarded a full ride, do you get to keep federal grants? And what's cool about federal grants is that that's usually the first thing an institution is going to use or apply in your aid package in order to make that full ride happen. You can always keep any type of grant, but yeah, federal grants are going to be the first thing that a school applies for a student's package. So you'll be able to keep those. Even if you don't get a full ride, you get to keep all the federal grants.
And I want to highlight to you also about keeping some of this money, because colleges look at direct expenses and indirect expenses. Sometimes for some students, you may get a little bit of money back. And the reason for that is because they're considering those indirect expenses like transportation or books, right? It's rare to get that amount back. So there's some schools that do that. But of course, if you are at a point where the college is offering you so many scholarships that you don't have to take out your loans, I would suggest you don't take out your loans and you don't get that money back unless you really, really need it. And of course, towards the end of the spring semester, when you're looking at award letters, you and your college counselor can look through that specificity for loans and how much money to get back.
I'm going to remind folks that the presentation materials that Bianca has just shared with all of you is available. I'm going to paste that now in the chat. And I also just sent a reminder there. We're about to host an open forum hosted by 5 admissions representatives from across the country that are there to answer any questions that you have. It's not a presentation, it's more of like a conversation. So I just shared the link for that as well. And I hope some of you will join for that session as well. So register for that or any other session you'd like to attend. Join us on Saturday for any other sessions that you'd like to attend. And then check out the deck from today in the chat.
Absolutely. And again, here's a sneak peek at, don't want to give you guys the answers to that homework, but here's a sneak peek of what that is.
Any other questions? I don't think I see anything else here. I know that there's a survey that you're going to be invited to.
One more. Oh, we got one last question. Some of the colleges that I mentioned. There are too many colleges to fully mention. I mentioned some just off the cuff, Denison, St. Olaf, Worcester. These are some really great schools. Please take a look at and talk to your college counselor about the data-driven checklist. What we've done is very similar to Yelp. We've created $ amounts. So any school that's $1 is going to be those schools that are very, very affordable. Will the report be sent to our emails? Mm-hmm. Great question.
Yes, they'll be sent to your emails. I think Jen can probably help us answer that for sure, but they'll also be available at the website on your screen here at strivescan.com/CrystalRay.
Yep, give us a day or two and those will be immediately posted on the website and easily available there. So if there's not any more questions, as Stephanie alluded to, thanks for joining us. We will be providing you a very quick 5-question survey after you exit the webinar. So we'd love to hear your feedback regarding this particular session. And then feel free to sign up for more sessions in this next coming hour, as well as sessions this upcoming Saturday. Thanks for spending your time with us and we hope you enjoyed. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Bianca.